board can do, is on the average homeowner's property, we can save them $450. For the average assessed commercial property, it goes up $6,000. That's what the shift does. So the most that we can save anybody is $450. Yet, at the same time, for this average assessed value on a commercial property, is $6,000 increase. These are the same businesses, that support our schools, support our programming here in North Reading, all our local organizations. And you're worried about vacant storefronts now. I mean, who's going to pay that? The tenants in those buildings have to absorb those costs. You're going to have to lay people off, and it just doesn't work. So we don't have the commercial, a big enough commercial base to even consider it, and we're a ways away from it. So it's not fair at this particular point. It's not right, and I don't think it's wise to do so.
Mr. Fode, do you have an additional comment?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Mr. O'Leary?
Also,
Thank you. Okay, the next question is addressed to Ms. Aguilar. How can the town keep healthcare costs down for the town employees?
I don't know if everyone's aware, but as far as school department employees, their health insurance are not bargained as part of the school contract. They're bargained with the group, all town employees, including school, with the town administrator. And over the years of working on the finance planning team, we've struggled with how do we manage the health insurance benefits for our employees, and it's out of our hands. They get to vote. It's a tough negotiation, but I do think that some of the proposals that have been presented, which have offered a cafeteria plan, which have sought to shift some of the split to maybe from an 80-20 to a 70-30, I think those are reasonable. I certainly don't support downgrading anybody's insurance plan. I wouldn't want it done to me. However, I do think that we have to come together and understand, all departments, that in order to preserve the level of services that we currently offer, there has to be some movement, something that's in the best interest of everybody. And you get to that point when there's trust. So when we can get everybody together and they trust that the selectmen just don't want to get a cheaper plan, and we understand that employees just want to protect their family and their services, then I think we can really come up with something that is viable and would get the support of the employees in that bargaining group.
Thank you. Mr. O'Leary?
what we've done over the last couple of years, we've made a significant amount of progress. And when I say we, I mean the Board of Selectmen and the administration in this particular area. I mean, this line item in the budget is one of the single largest next to salaries cost items. It's over $5 million, $5.5 million for health care benefits for our employees. We were able to successfully negotiate with the assistance and again, the understanding of the employees a new plan a couple of years ago, which actually resulted in a 0% increase in our health care costs, which was unheard of when we had been experiencing double-digit increases in health care costs over a significant number of years. That in and of itself saved $500,000. We're looking at an increase with the current plan that we have negotiated with them, a modest increase of only around 5%. Again, that has freed up in the last 2 years, probably close to $500,000 to $800,000 just through successful negotiations and implementation by the board and the administration. So we negotiated with them, and it was difficult when we're messing around with people's health insurance coverages. You know, it's a touchy issue. But we have been very successful. The collective bargaining units and the employees have come together, worked with us, and trust was built between the two, the board and the employees, because we hired an outside insurance administrator to come in and explain the programs. They bought into it, and we're feeling very good about what we've already accomplished. So again, what we can do also is take a look at the group insurance commission plan through the state, which is offered to the town. I haven't been recommending that at this particular time, because then those choices and those plans are out of our hands in our decision-making process, so it's a dangerous slope to go down. So it's we've made a significant amount of progress on the issue already, and I'm happy to say that I played a major role in accomplishing that.
Mr. Fode?
I think first and foremost, we need to look at all different types of insurance programs. The GIC, as Steve mentioned, the Group Insurance Commission is one of them. We need to negotiate with each one of them to get the best prices, but also not jeopardize the coverage that our employees have. One of the things that we had done when I was an employee in Somerville, and we were seeing 10% increases every year, was we offered incentive programs, one-time incentive programs to our employees whose spouses had insurance programs or were offered insurance programs elsewhere, and we would offer them a monetary incentive to come off the city's insurance program and go to their spouses. That saved the, it may have cost us $5,000, a one-time $5,000 cost, but they were off the program for 10 years. And that worked out very well. It saved the city a substantial amount of money. So it's ideas and initiatives like that we have to look into. And again, negotiating not only with different insurance policies, but with our employees. They need to understand that it costs us, a ton of money to insure them, but we don't want to jeopardize their coverage. We want to make sure that they're covered, that that if something should happen to them or their family members, that they can go to the hospital and not have an issue with not being covered.
Ms. Hardy-Backer, do you have additional comment?
Just to say that building trust with your employee groups is so important. At the last teachers' contract that we bargained in North Reading, because the teachers understood the need for us to free up money in the budget and to maintain some control over their steps and the salary increases, they were willing to take a 0% and no movement on steps, and that was unprecedented. Our employees enjoy working in North Reading. This is a great place to work, and they wanted to continue working here and at the same time providing a level of services to our students. And so they agreed to that, and I'm sure that we can take that kind of initiative, and which is already established, and just continue that momentum of building trust. Because who wouldn't want to work in this community? We have a great time.
Mr. O'Leary?
Just in relation to the incentive programs that Joe suggested, I mean, we've taken a look at those things. One of the problems with that program is that, as an employer, we're required to offer health insurance. And even if someone opts out, to get on a spouse's plan, but then the spouse loses their job, we cannot refuse to have them come back into the program. So it would have to be some sort of an ongoing incentive program on an annual basis for every year that they don't, for anyone who's participating now that doesn't participate, a small stipend to go elsewhere. You can't, the $5,000 dollar amount is pretty hefty when they can come right back the next year. So it's something maybe to look at, but from a practical standpoint, because the way the laws have been changed and implemented from an employer standpoint, we're mandated to offer these programs, and we're mandated to take them back even if they opt out. So we've looked at it, and right now we're in a good position, and I feel very good and very confident that the employees recognize that $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 we've saved has saved jobs, kept teachers in the classroom, police in the street, firemen in the firehouse.
Thank you. Mr. Fode?
Yeah, and I could appreciate what Mr. Leary said about, looking at, the incentive program. And maybe it isn't, one time, maybe it's, you look at it every year and give them a smaller stipend every year. That's much less than what it would cost to insure an employee. Again, the bottom line is we have to protect our employees and make sure that they're covered, and that if anything should happen to them, that they can go and get the health care that they need. But I think there are incentive programs out there that we can look at that would benefit not only the town, but benefit the employee, because they have other options. And if they don't have those other options, then they're more than welcome to come back.
Thank you. The next question will be addressed to Mr. O'Leary. There seems to be multiple concerns regarding maintaining the quality of the schools and the education, while maintaining the financial stability of the schools, maintaining a competitive advantage for the students, obtaining more Chapter 70 and SPED funding or local aid, preserving and finding additional revenue, adding back resources and materials. I think you get the idea.
Okay. Yes, and this is an annual say an event that takes place, actually, not just annual, it's on a monthly event. It's on the table every single month of the year, and as Mrs. Vaca pointed out, and as I pointed out earlier, we have the finance planning team, which is a coordinated effort on the part of all boards, the school committee, Board of Selectmen, and Finance Committee. The chairs and vice chairs of those boards meet along with our town administrator, our finance director, the school building, the superintendent, and the business manager from the schools on a monthly basis during the year, and then more often during the budgetary season, to ensure that everybody's on the same page in relation to where we are budgetarily, and how much dollars in revenues do we have. So we go through this exercise on a regular basis. The board is constantly informed as to how we're doing revenue-wise, what the splits are going to be, and how it works out. There is no doubt that the state does not meet their mandates as far as funding their mandates. So we have an awful lot of mandates that are put on communities and the public education system, which are not supported sufficiently through the state. We have been working for years trying to get the legislature to give adequate funding to our school systems. Special education is a good example of where, depending upon who moves into your community, can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars for one student just because someone moved into town. There's a total lack of fairness, understanding, and on the state's part of funding those particular programs. Chapter 70, again, we just have to continue to lobby, continue to pray that the economic situation changes so the revenues are increased, and therefore more local aid can come back and more can be directed towards our schools. So fortunately, the Board of Selectmen, myself included, I played a major role over the years in making sure that the North Reading Public Schools have gotten adequate funding to maintain the services and curriculum that it currently have and enjoy.
Mr. Fode?
Like all other areas in the town, we have an obligation to support our schools. We have some of the best educators around, and my wife and I were looking at, when we moved into town, where we were going to go when we were going to send our daughter to school, and after speaking to the principals and the educators and the teachers, we felt that this was the place we wanted to have our daughter grow up and to be educated. We have an obligation to go to the state legislation and talk to them and find out how we can get more funding for our schools. Chapter 70, fortunately, this year has been increased. It hasn't in the past. There are programs that were not being funded, SPED being one of them. So, as selectmen, and we have to work with other organizations like NRU to make sure we can go there and talk to our legislative delegation to make sure that we're being fairly treated when it comes to Chapter 70, and make sure that we have the funds affordable to make sure that all our kids are educated properly.
We have an outstanding school system, but we spend less than the state average per pupil. We have fewer administrators for our school size, and we are robbing our children of some of the benefits that other communities are able to afford, but we do a great job with what we have. That said, one of my biggest pet peeves is the Chapter 70 formula. For 15 years on the school committee, I lobbied at the State House as a member of Massachusetts Association for School Committee Members. I continue to lobby, and even today I was at the State House lobbying for an increase in local aid. There is a problem with the Chapter 70 formula and how it is written. In year one of its implementation, because it took 12 months to enact, they left out the inflation factor. 3 years ago, in order to balance the state budget, they left out the inflation factor. So without even addressing the little idiosyncrasies of what is funding in that formula, we're behind just in the inflation factor. We need to make that a change. So several years ago, along with other school committee members in the North Shore area, we started the Suburban Coalition. With our neighbors in Linfield, we brought this coalition. As a matter of fact, tomorrow morning we're meeting at the State House to continue lobbying. There is a big difference in school systems in the city and school systems in the suburbs. And if the legislator continues to fund based on success, successful districts like North Reading are not going to see an increase in funding. We need to make known and make a difference in the funding formula, because we need to keep the momentum We might not have the same issue,